Man, I've got to tell you about this wild situation that happened to me earlier today that's going to make you rethink everything about what the Knicks might be planning for their roster and how they're strategically evaluating potential moves to strengthen this team for a deep playoff run and legitimate championship contention. I was grabbing lunch at this deli near my apartment that I go to all the time, just standing in line waiting to order my usual sandwich and not really paying attention to much around me or the other customers, when the guy in front of me wearing a Knicks hat turned around and asked if I'd seen the latest Sports Center coverage about potential Knicks trades that were being discussed extensively on ESPN. I told him I hadn't yet, because I'd been busy all morning with back-to-back work meetings and hadn't had a chance to check my phone or turn on the TV to catch any updates. And he proceeded to give me this excited 5-minute rundown of what the ESPN panel had been discussing in great detail about backcourt upgrades and scoring additions that could change everything for this team. Before we get into all this breaking news, if you're enjoying this analysis and want daily Knicks content, go ahead and smash that like button real quick to help us grow. The guy was so enthusiastic and knowledgeable about all the details and specifics that I knew I absolutely had to get home and watch the full segment myself to hear everything directly from the analysts and see the breakdown. So I literally ordered my sandwich to go instead of eating there like I normally would, practically ran back to my apartment as fast as I could without looking crazy, and immediately turned on ESPN to catch the replay of what I'd missed during my morning meeting. When the broadcast came on my screen, the entire Sports Center panel was deeply engaged in this fascinating strategic conversation about how the Knicks could potentially upgrade their backcourt depth and add another dynamic scorer who could take tremendous pressure off Jalen Brunson in high-leverage playoff situations when defenses focus entirely on stopping him and taking the ball out of his hand. The analysts were examining this from every possible angle you could imagine: fit with the current roster and playing style, contract logistics, and salary cap implications that would need to be navigated, what assets would need to be included in any trade package to make it work, and how it would impact the rotation and playing time distribution for everyone on the team, including the young players. Before diving into the Anthony Simons speculation and what it would mean for the franchise's championship aspiration, the crew revisited that incredible, thrilling Dallas victory one more time to properly appreciate what it meant for the team's confidence and momentum going forward into a tough stretch of games. They showed extensive highlights of Jalen Brunson's triumphant return performance, where he looked completely healthy and back to his all-star form with an impressive 28 points in just his first game back from the ankle injury that had everyone worried. And they emphasized how absolutely critical it is to have your best player healthy and producing at that elite level when you need him most in crucial games. The panel also highlighted Josh Hart's incredible hustle play, where he grabbed his own missed shot on the offensive glass with multiple defenders around him boxing him out, fell down while securing the rebound, and still managed to find Landry Shamet open in the corner for a massive clutch three-pointer that extended the lead and gave the Knicks breathing room. Those are championship-level winning plays that don't always show up in the traditional box score stats, but make all the difference between winning and losing close games on the road in hostile environments. The analysts spent considerable time breaking down the defensive intensity the Knicks showed in those final crucial minutes, with Landry Shamet in particular fighting through screens and using his length to contest shots. They showed clips of the defensive rotations and how everyone was communicating and helping each other, which represents the kind of connected defense that championship teams display consistently. The crew emphasized that this type of defensive effort needs to become the norm rather than the exception if the Knicks want to make a deep playoff run. Now let's discuss in comprehensive detail the Anthony Simons trade speculation that could give the Knicks the explosive scoring and shot creation they desperately need to compete with the elite teams in the Eastern Conference. Currently, substantive discussions are happening throughout NBA front offices about the possible departure of Anthony Simons from the Portland Trail Blazers, and similar to Washington's rebuilding situation with the Wizards, Portland is in full reconstruction mode after trading away franchise icon and beloved star Damian Lillard, who defined the organization for over a decade and was the face of the franchise. Anfernee Simons, with his elite scoring skills, shot creation ability off the dribble, and unlimited shooting range, represents an interesting and valuable asset for contending teams looking to add legitimate offensive firepower and a proven scorer who can create his own shot. Trading Simons could net the Blazers additional valuable draft picks and future assets, while freeing up significant salary cap space for building their new young core around different timeline players who fit the reconstruction plan. The SportsCenter crew broke down Anfernee Simons' statistical profile extensively, showing how he averaged over 21 points per game last season, while also contributing nearly 4 assists per game as a secondary playmaker. The analysts emphasized that Simons can absolutely explode for huge scoring nights, where he drops 30, 35, or even 40 points when he gets hot, and enters that zone where every shot seems to go in. And those are the types of games that can swing playoff series and change momentum completely. His ability to create his own shot off the dribble with a quick first step, pull up from anywhere on the court with deep range extending beyond the three-point line, and knock down contested threes over taller defenders makes him extremely difficult to defend in isolation situations and pick-and-roll scenarios. The panel showed highlights of Simons' scoring ability, displaying his smooth shooting stroke and how he can score in a variety of ways. They highlighted games where he torched elite defenses for 35-plus points, showing his ability to take over games when his team needs buckets. The analysts discussed his improvement as a playmaker over the years, noting how he's become more comfortable running pick and roll and making the right reads when defenses collapse on him. For the New York Knicks specifically, acquiring Anfernee Simons would provide dynamic scoring punch and crucial backcourt depth behind Jalen Brunson that they currently lack and desperately need. The panel discussed extensively how Simons could play alongside Brunson in two-guard lineups that would give opponents nightmares defensively, or spell him completely to give Brunson much-needed rest while maintaining offensive firepower and scoring punch on the floor. His youth at just 25 years old fits the Knicks' championship window perfectly as he's entering his prime years, and his ability to score in bunches and catch fire would give the team another legitimate go-to option when they need buckets in crunch-time situations. The analysts examined potential trade packages that could work financially and make sense for both sides, noting that Portland would want draft picks and young players in return as they build for the future. They discussed how Simons' contract situation makes a deal feasible without destroying the Knicks' salary cap flexibility, and his offensive skill set would complement the Knicks' defensive-minded roster construction beautifully by providing the scoring punch they need. The crew emphasized that adding a scorer of Simons' caliber would make the Knicks significantly more dangerous offensively and give them the firepower to compete with high-scoring teams like Boston, Milwaukee, and Philadelphia. The panel also discussed the potential defensive concerns with Simons, acknowledging he's not known as a lockdown defender, but emphasizing that the Knicks have enough defensive personnel to cover for him. They noted that his offensive production would more than make up for any defensive limitations, and that playing alongside defensive-minded players would allow him to focus on what he does best, scoring the basketball at an elite level. The analysts broke down how Simons would fit into Mike Brown's offensive system, noting that Brown's motion offense and emphasis on ball movement would give Simons plenty of opportunities to operate in space and attack closeouts. They discussed how his ability to play off the ball and relocate for threes would make him dangerous in catch-and-shoot situations as well, not just as a primary ball handler. So that was the comprehensive, detailed breakdown of how Anfernee Simons could transform the Knicks' offensive firepower and give them another dynamic scoring threat who could be the difference maker they need. Alright, so let me tell you about this absolutely insane experience I had yesterday that's going to completely change your perspective on what moves the New York Knicks might be planning behind the scenes to upgrade this roster and address some of their most glaring weaknesses. I was actually at the doctor's office for a routine checkup appointment, sitting in the waiting room, just mindlessly scrolling through my phone, trying to pass the time before they called my name, when I noticed this guy across from me, wearing a Knicks jersey, suddenly get this shocked look on his face while staring at his phone screen like he'd just seen something absolutely unbelievable. He looked up and made eye contact with me, saw I was also wearing Knicks gear, and immediately came over to show me what he was reading on his ESPN app, with genuine excitement in his voice. Before we dive into all this breaking news, if you're finding this insider information valuable, go ahead and hit that like button real quick. It helps us keep bringing you these daily updates on everything Knicks. Apparently, SportsCenter had just started breaking down some developing trade scenarios involving the Knicks that this guy found absolutely fascinating and wanted to share with a fellow fan. So we both pulled up the broadcast on our phones using headphones and started watching together right there in the waiting room, like two kids sharing a secret. The entire panel was engaged in this really thoughtful strategic discussion about potential roster improvements the Knicks could explore over the coming weeks and months. And specifically, they were analyzing one particular player who makes an incredible amount of sense as a trade target, given his current situation and skill set that would fit perfectly with New York's needs. The analysts were going back and forth examining all the angles and implications from every possible perspective. And you could tell they'd really done their homework on this because they were citing specific statistics and contract details that showed genuine preparation and research. Before getting into the Kyle Kuzma trade speculation, though, the SportsCenter crew wanted to revisit and celebrate that absolutely thrilling road victory the Knicks secured in Dallas that showed tremendous character and resilience in a must-win situation. The panel replayed those clutch Landry Shamet three-pointers down the stretch that had everyone on their feet, and they broke down in detail the controversial final play where Brandon Williams was called for an offensive foul on Shamet that could have gone either way. The analysts brought in a former NBA referee expert who confirmed that upon careful replay review, it was clearly the correct call. Williams hooked his arm around Shamet, creating illegal contact that gave him an unfair advantage, even though in real time it looked like it could have been a defensive foul on Shamet. The crew emphasized what impressed them most was the Knicks' defense in those final 3 crucial minutes, when they'd been getting absolutely shredded defensively the entire game up until that point. Landry Shamet in particular showed maximum effort, fighting through screens and using his length to contest shots, and everyone else on the team followed his lead with that same intensity and focus. Their defense became absolutely stifling for those last 3 minutes, which is ultimately what won them the basketball game, and head coach Mike Brown is going to absolutely love the fact that they turned it on in crunch time on the defensive end, because that's precisely how you win difficult road games in the NBA, by getting crucial stops when you need them most in winning time. But now, let's transition to the Kyle Kuzma trade speculation that makes tremendous sense for both organizations involved in multiple ways. Currently circulating throughout NBA front offices are substantive discussions about the possible departure of Kyle Kuzma from the Washington Wizards, and the primary motivation is straightforward and logical. The Wizards are deeply entrenched in a long-term reconstruction and rebuilding process after years of mediocrity and disappointing playoff exit. Kyle Kuzma is a proven veteran with legitimate championship experience from his time with the Lakers winning the title in 2020. He has a manageable contract that's not prohibitively expensive or difficult to move, and he represents a genuinely valuable asset for contending teams seeking to reinforce their roster with reliable scoring and versatility at multiple positions. Trading Kyle Kuzma would allow the Wizards to acquire valuable draft picks or young developmental talent that fits their timeline better as they build around their younger core of players who represent the franchise's future. Washington has made it abundantly clear they're playing the long game and prioritizing future assets over present competitiveness, so moving veterans like Kuzma makes perfect strategic sense from an organizational standpoint. Kyle Kuzma averaged over 22 points per game last season and has shown he can be a primary scoring option and focal point of an offense. But more importantly, for the Knicks, he's proven throughout his career he can also accept a complementary role on championship-level teams, where he's not the first or second option. For the New York Knicks specifically, acquiring Kyle Kuzma would address multiple roster needs simultaneously in one transaction. Kuzma provides instant scoring punch. Whether coming off the bench or starting, he brings championship experience and knows what it takes to win at the highest level in the playoffs. His defensive versatility allows him to guard multiple positions from small forwards to power forwards, and his contract situation makes the financial logistics manageable without destroying the salary cap. The Sports Center panel emphasized that Kuzma's ability to score efficiently from all three levels, attacking the rim with athleticism, utilizing his mid-range game, and knocking down three-point shots, would give the Knicks another legitimate offensive weapon beyond just Jalen Brunson, who desperately needs help. The analysts broke down how Kuzma's length at 6.9 would give the Knicks more size and switchability on defense, and his experience playing alongside stars like LeBron James and Anthony Davis means he understands how to maximize his impact without needing the ball constantly. The crew discussed potential trade packages that could work financially, noting the Knicks have expiring contracts and future draft picks that would appeal to Washington's rebuilding timeline. They emphasized that Kuzma's versatility to play both forward positions would give Mike Brown tremendous lineup flexibility. So that was the comprehensive breakdown of how Kyle Kuzma could be the perfect addition to this Knicks roster and address their need for scoring depth. Okay, so I have to tell you about something absolutely crazy that happened to me last night that's going to blow your mind and completely change how you think about what the New York Knicks are capable of accomplishing this season and what moves they might be planning behind the scenes. I was sitting on my couch around 10 p.m., just casually flipping through channels, trying to find something good to watch after a long, exhausting day at work. Had my phone next to me on the coffee table, wasn't really paying much attention to anything in particular, when suddenly I started getting these rapid-fire text messages from like 5 different friends, all asking me if I was watching SportsCenter right now and telling me I needed to turn it on immediately because they were discussing something absolutely huge about the Knicks that I wouldn't believe. And hey, real quick before we dive into all this insane breaking news, if you're enjoying this breakdown and want to stay updated on all the latest Knicks developments, smash that like button right now, because it genuinely helps us continue bringing you this content every single day. So obviously, I immediately grabbed my remote and switched over to ESPN as fast as I possibly could. And when the broadcast came on my screen, the entire Sports Center panel was in the absolute middle of this incredibly intense and passionate discussion about the New York Knicks and some developing trade scenarios that could genuinely transform this roster from playoff contender to legitimate championship favorite overnight. The energy radiating from that studio was absolutely electric and contagious, because you could tell from how animated the analysts were getting, from their hand gestures and raised voices, and the way they were leaning forward in their seats with such intensity that they genuinely understood they were discussing something potentially franchise-altering that could define the Knicks' championship window for the next several years and reshape the Eastern Conference landscape. But before we dive deep into the absolutely explosive Brandon Ingram trade speculation that has the entire basketball world buzzing with excitement and anticipation, the Sports Center crew wanted to comprehensively break down and analyze what was genuinely one of the wildest and most thrilling games of the entire NBA season so far that had fans on the edge of their seat. The New York Knicks traveled to Dallas and escaped with an absolutely heart-stopping 113-111 victory over the Mavericks to finally secure their first road win of the season after several disappointing losses away from Madison Square Garden. And let me tell you, this game was absolutely not for the faint of heart whatsoever and had everyone's blood pressure through the roof. The panel showed this incredible dramatic sequence From the final moment where Landry Shamet, with just 4 seconds remaining, hit his first three-pointer of the entire game to put the Knicks up by 1 point in an absolutely pressure-packed moment where the season felt like it was hanging in the balance. Then, with the game still hanging in the balance and both teams trading possessions, Shamet struck again, knocking down another absolutely clutch three-pointer to extend the lead to 3 points, with precious seconds ticking away and Dallas desperately trying to mount a comeback. The final sequence was absolutely wild and controversial. With just 3.8 seconds remaining, Dallas guard Brandon Williams drove hard to the basket with a full head of steam and was called for an offensive foul on Shamet. And if that whistle had gone the other way, Williams potentially goes to the free throw line with a golden opportunity to win the game for Dallas and send the Knicks home with another devastating road loss. The analysts emphasized this wasn't pretty basketball by any stretch of the imagination, but it represented exactly the kind of gritty, grinding road victory that championship-caliber teams absolutely must find ways to win during the long, grueling regular season when shots aren't falling and nothing comes easy. The Knicks shot an absolutely abysmal percentage from three-point range for most of the game and incredibly missed 16 free throws, including missing 5 of their last 6 attempts in the crucial final seconds when free throws should be automatic. And yet somehow, through sheer determination and clutch play, they were still able to escape Dallas with a victory. The crew kept stressing that wasn't pretty at all, and there were legitimate concerns about execution. But it's a road win, and you absolutely take it every single time, because winning on the road in the NBA is incredibly difficult, especially when you're not playing your best basketball. The Knicks did go 5 for 12 from three-point range in the fourth quarter, after really struggling mightily and going an absolutely terrible 0 for 10 from deep in the second quarter. They couldn't buy a bucket, so they showed tremendous resilience and mental toughness to keep fighting and believing they could win even when shots weren't falling. The three-point shooting and three-point defense were major persistent issues for the Knicks throughout this entire game on both ends of the floor, but you were just waiting to see if someone could get hot and take over, and Deuce McBride, then Landry Shamet late in the game, got absolutely scorching hot from 3 and knocked down massive shots when the team needed them most in crunch time. But the bigger story and more important storyline beyond just the victory was the triumphant return of star point guard Jalen Brunson to the starting lineup after missing time with an ankle injury that had everyone concerned about the severity. Brunson gave the Knicks an absolutely phenomenal 28-point performance in his first start in a week since suffering that ankle injury, so that's genuinely great news that he's back healthy and doing all the things you expect from an all-star caliber point guard who controls the game. The panel showed how Brunson scored 27 of those 28 points in just the first 3 quarters, before not making a field goal in the fourth, which shows how absolutely dominant he was early in the game, getting to his spots and making plays. But now, let's transition to the absolutely explosive Brandon Ingram trade speculation that could provide the Knicks with the elite scoring wing they desperately need to compete with the best teams in the league. Currently, there are substantive discussions happening around the league about the possible departure of Brandon Ingram from the New Orleans Pelicans, and the primary motivation driving these trade rumors is the complete lack of progress on a contract extension agreement between Ingram and the Pelicans front office, despite months of negotiations. Brandon Ingram is entering a contract situation where New Orleans faces a critical organizational decision: either extend him now to a massive long-term deal worth potentially $200 million or more, or risk losing him as an unrestricted free agent without receiving any assets in return, which would be organizational malpractice of the highest order. The Pelicans may not want to take that substantial risk of losing Brandon Ingram for absolutely nothing in free agency, so trading him now while his value remains high and they can get significant assets back makes strategic sense from a roster management perspective. Additionally, the New Orleans organization may be seeking players who fit better schematically alongside franchise cornerstone Zion Williamson, and who can bring more consistency and reliability to the roster on both ends of the floor. Brandon Ingram is an incredibly talented scorer and playmaker with elite offensive skill, but questions about his fit alongside Zion and whether they can coexist successfully have persisted throughout their time together in New Orleans. For the New York Knicks specifically, acquiring Brandon Ingram would provide exactly what this team desperately needs to take the next step. An elite scoring wing who can create his own shot in isolation situations, a secondary playmaker who takes tremendous pressure off Jalen Brunson, and a versatile defender with length who can guard multiple positions at a high level. Brandon Ingram, at 6'8", with his smooth shooting stroke and ability to score efficiently from all three levels, would be absolutely perfect alongside Brunson in the backcourt, and would give the Knicks a legitimate second star. The Sports Center panel kept emphasizing that Ingram's shot creation ability and scoring versatility would completely transform the Knicks' offensive capabilities and make them significantly more dangerous in playoff situations when defenses tighten up and half-court execution becomes paramount. The crew broke down how Brandon Ingram averaged over 24.4 points per game last season, with efficient shooting percentages, and how his length would be a massive asset defensively. They discussed potential trade packages that could work financially and how the Knicks have assets that would interest New Orleans. The analysts also emphasized that adding a player of Ingram's caliber would immediately vault the Knicks into that top tier of Eastern Conference contenders alongside Boston and Milwaukee. So that was the comprehensive Sports Center breakdown of the Knicks' thrilling Dallas victory, plus the Brandon Ingram trade speculation that could reshape their championship. Look, I need you to stop whatever you're doing right now because what I'm about to tell you is going to completely blow your mind and change everything you thought you knew about the New York Knicks organization and what's really happening behind closed doors at Madison Square Garden. This isn't just some rumor or speculation or hot take. This is legitimate insider information that's going to shake the entire Knicks fan base to its core and make you question every single decision Leon Rose has made over the past year. So buckle up, because this is going to be one wild ride through the absolute chaos that's brewing in the front office. So here's something absolutely wild that happened to me this morning that I need to tell you about because it completely changed my entire perspective on what's happening with the Knicks organization right now and made me realize we've all been missing the real story this whole time. I woke up pretty early, around 6 a.m. because I couldn't sleep. My mind was racing thinking about the Knicks' recent performances and all the questions swirling around this team, so I figured I'd just get up and make some coffee and catch up on all the overnight news and developments before starting my day. I turned on Sports Center like I religiously do every single morning while making breakfast. You know, just having it on in the background for some company and to catch any overnight highlight or breaking news from around the league, when suddenly the entire tone of the broadcast completely shifted, and the panel started discussing something that had my jaw literally dropping to the floor in absolute shock and disbelief at what I was hearing. Hey, what's up, everyone? Before we jump into this massive Knicks news, I just want to ask you for a quick favor that would mean the world to me. If you could just take 1 second right now and hit that like button, it would be incredibly important to me and helps this channel grow so much. I know it seems like a small thing, but those likes genuinely make a huge difference in getting this content out to more Knicks fans who need to stay updated on everything happening with this team. So seriously, just tap that like button real quick. It literally takes 1 second, and it helps me out more than you know. The Sports Center crew was hosting this incredibly revealing and candid interview segment with a well-connected NBA insider who clearly has deep sources within multiple organizations, and he had some genuinely explosive information about the New York Knicks organization that nobody outside that building knows about yet, specifically about team president Leon Rose and the coaching situation that's been developing behind the scenes in ways that fans have absolutely no idea about and would be shocked to discover. The energy in the studio immediately changed dramatically when this topic came up, because you could tell from the analysts' body language and facial expressions that they understood they were about to discuss something genuinely significant and potentially franchise-altering that hadn't been publicly reported yet anywhere else. And I literally stopped pouring my coffee midstream and just stood there completely frozen in my kitchen, absolutely transfixed by what I was hearing come through my television speakers. The insider guest on the show started methodically laying out this absolutely fascinating and somewhat concerning narrative about the current state of the Knicks organization and how things are genuinely going internally compared to what the public perceives and what the media has been reporting. And let me tell you, some of what he revealed was absolutely mind-blowing and will definitely have Knicks fans questioning everything they thought they knew about this season's direction and the decision-making process. The panel first wanted to establish some baseline context by discussing how we've already seen some noticeable and measurable differences with this current version of the Knicks compared to last season's version under Tom Thibodeau's leadership and coaching philosophy that defined the team's identity. One of the main things that everyone noticed and heavily criticized about last season was the Knicks not really utilizing their bench properly and effectively running their starters completely into the ground with excessive minutes that left them exhausted come playoff time. But this season, under new head coach Mike Brown, they're genuinely utilizing their bench rotation more extensively and strategically, giving younger players legitimate opportunities to contribute and develop. The insider acknowledged fairly that maybe the raw statistical numbers don't fully support the perception yet when you look at the spreadsheets, but watching the games closely with a trained eye, you can genuinely see they look like they're playing faster, with more pace and tempo. They're intentionally moving the ball more, with significantly better ball movement and player movement. And there seems to be considerably more offensive creativity and freedom compared to Thibodeau's more rigid and systematic approach that sometimes stifled natural playmaking. But here's where the conversation took an absolutely shocking and unexpected turn that nobody in the studio or watching at home saw coming. When asked directly and pointedly how this current version of the Knicks stacks up compared to last year's team, and whether they can realistically win a championship with this roster construction, the insider dropped some genuinely explosive information that has massive implications for the entire organization's future. He stated emphatically, and without any hesitation whatsoever, that the Knicks absolutely don't have a better head coach than Mike Brown right now, in his honest professional opinion, and that the organization actually took a significant downgrade at the critically important head coaching position when they made the controversial decision to fire Tom Thibodeau and replace him with Brown, who wasn't even their top choice. The insider emphasized he genuinely hates going after low-hanging fruit and making obvious criticisms that everyone already knows about, but the evidence is already mounting significantly that this was a questionable decision at best and potentially a franchise-altering mistake at worst. The panel discussed at length how the bench and deep end of the bench is supposed to be reserved exclusively for garbage time, in the final 2 minutes of blowout games, when the outcome is already completely decided and starters should be resting. But sure enough, Mike Brown has made the genuinely puzzling decision to keep star point guard Jalen Brunson on the floor in situations where he absolutely shouldn't be playing and risking injury for no strategic reason. Jalen Brunson, who is always in legitimate danger of getting injured given his incredibly aggressive physical playing style and the way he throws his body around, was inexplicably kept on the floor with just 1 minute and 40 seconds remaining in a complete blowout game where the outcome was never in doubt, and, predictably, he suffered a knee injury that will keep him sidelined for at least several games and potentially longer, depending on how his recovery progressed. The insider emphasized strongly this represents a significant black mark on Mike Brown's coaching record and decision-making right in the first month of his tenure with the organization, and it's exactly the type of completely preventable injury situation that raises serious, legitimate questions about his judgment and ability to manage a roster properly. The insider also pointed out extensively that despite all the supposed philosophical differences between Brown and Thibodeau, that the front office cited when making the coaching change, the Knicks are still frustratingly playing the same lax and ineffective defense against the three-point line that absolutely plagued them last season and cost them games. Both coaches apparently share a remarkably similar defensive philosophy where they like to pack the paint heavily and prevent shots at the rim, while leaving the three-point line not as closely guarded as it absolutely should be in today's modern three-point shooting NBA. Tom Thibodeau loved to pack the paint defensively and live with opponents shooting three, and Mike Brown seems to be following that exact same blueprint, despite three-point shooting becoming increasingly important and valuable. But then, the SportsCenter crew asked the most explosive question of the entire interview that led to the biggest revelation. What does the insider genuinely think about the Knicks' decision to fire Tom Thibodeau in the first place? And did Thibodeau genuinely deserve to be let go after everything he accomplished? The insider paused for dramatic effect and then dropped an absolutely nuclear bomb of information. He stated with complete confidence that Leon Rose would genuinely like to go back in time and reverse the decision if he could, because Jason Kidd was the #1 target and they couldn't get him. Meaning Mike Brown wasn't even in the top 5 candidates initially. So that was the absolutely explosive SportsCenter segment, revealing Leon Rose may be genuinely regretting his coaching decision. All right, everybody, so let me tell you what happened to me last night that completely changed my entire evening plans and had me absolutely glued to my television for the next 3 hours straight. I was getting ready to head out to dinner with some friends at this new restaurant we'd been wanting to try for weeks. You know, just a casual Tuesday night catching up and enjoying good food and conversation, when suddenly, out of nowhere, I got this text message from like 3 different people simultaneously, all asking me if I'd seen the latest SportsCenter coverage about the New York Knicks and some absolutely wild trade rumors that were starting to circulate around the league and gaining serious momentum. At first, I honestly thought maybe it was just typical off-season speculation or someone misinterpreting a random tweet or podcast comment. But then I opened up Twitter and Instagram, and my entire timeline was absolutely exploding with tweets and posts from verified NBA insiders, beat reporters, and analysts, all discussing and debating the exact same story from multiple different angles. So obviously, I had to make the difficult decision to cancel those dinner plans immediately, send my apologetic text messages to my disappointed friends promising to reschedule soon, and plant myself right in front of my television to catch the full comprehensive SportsCenter breakdown and analysis of what was unfolding in real time across the basketball world. When I finally got ESPN on my screen after fumbling with the remote for what felt like forever, the entire SportsCenter panel was already deep in the middle of this incredibly intense and animated discussion about multiple interconnected storylines involving several franchises around the league. But the one storyline that really caught everyone's attention and had the analysts visibly excited and engaged was this potential blockbuster trade scenario involving a future Hall of Fame player with championship pedigree who might genuinely be on the move sooner rather than later. Hey, what's up, everyone? Before we jump into this massive Knicks news, I just want to ask you for a quick favor that would mean the world to me. If you could just take 1 second right now and hit that like button, it would be incredibly important to me and helps this channel grow so much. I know it seems like a small thing, but those likes genuinely make a huge difference in getting this content out to more Knicks fans. By the way, real quick, if you're a Knicks fan, check out this insane Knicks cap popping up on the screen right now. It just went on sale until the end of this week, so this is the perfect time to grab yours. And right below, you'll also find other official Knicks products that are absolutely insane. Just click the card that just appeared. Now, let's get back to the video. Who need to stay updated on everything happening with this team. So seriously, just tap that like button real quick. It literally takes 1 second, and it helps me out more than you know. The energy and excitement in that SportsCenter studio was absolutely palpable and contagious because you could tell from their body language, tone of voice, and the way they were leaning forward in their seats, that the crew understood they were potentially discussing something historically significant that could reshape the entire Eastern Conference playoff picture and competitive landscape, while giving one franchise the final missing piece they desperately need for a legitimate championship run this season. The analysts kept emphasizing repeatedly throughout their discussion that what they were about to break down and analyze wasn't just typical media speculation, hot take nonsense, or clickbait content designed to generate views. This was genuinely based on real substantive reporting from multiple credible sources with actual direct knowledge of front office discussions and trade explorations happening right now behind closed doors in NBA war rooms. The SportsCenter crew started laying out the entire situation methodically and comprehensively, making sure to provide all the necessary context and background information. And here's where things get absolutely fascinating and potentially franchise-altering for New York Knicks fans, who have been desperately hoping and praying that the front office led by Leon Rose would make one more significant, impactful move to put this roster over the top and transform them from playoff contender to genuine championship favorite. Currently circulating throughout NBA circles and being discussed in front offices around the league are genuine substantive rumors about the possible departure of five-time All-Star and four-time NBA champion Klay Thompson from the Dallas Mavericks, with the organization actively and aggressively exploring various trade options and scenarios after what's been an unquestionably disappointing and concerning start to the 2025-26 season that has fallen well below organizational expectations and raised serious questions about the roster construction, according to comprehensive reporting from multiple trusted sources. The panel emphasized with great significance that Klay Thompson was also recently moved to the bench and removed from the starting lineup by head coach Jason Kidd in what represents a genuinely significant development and clear public indication that Dallas's coaching staff and front office are seriously reassessing his role and value with the franchise moving forward into the future. This wasn't just a minor rotation adjustment or load management decision. This was a clear demotion for a future Hall of Famer who's accustomed to being a cornerstone starter his entire career, and it sent shockwaves throughout the basketball community when it happened. Now, before we dive deeper into the specific trade speculation details and what this seismic move could potentially mean for the New York Knicks specifically and their championship aspirations, the SportsCenter analysts wanted to make sure they provided proper comprehensive context about exactly why these Klay Thompson trade rumors have emerged so prominently and gained so much serious traction and credibility in recent weeks among league insiders and front office personnel. Looking systematically at the primary motivations and factors behind these persistent trade discussions that keep intensifying, there are several genuinely interconnected factors and considerations, all contributing simultaneously to this situation becoming increasingly likely to actually materialize into a real trade rather than just remaining speculation. First and foremost, as the most significant concern, Klay Thompson's genuinely poor and alarming performance during the initial portion of this season represents the biggest worry and concern for Dallas's front office executives and coaching staff, who expected veteran excellence. The strategic decision to move Klay Thompson to the bench occurred directly after a genuinely weak and deeply concerning start to the season where his shooting percentages were significantly down from his career averages. His defensive mobility and lateral quickness appeared noticeably limited compared to his prime years, and his overall tangible impact on winning basketball games was highly questionable at best and arguably negative at times. Although Klay Thompson has definitely shown some encouraging improvement and better shooting performances recently over the last several games that suggest he might finally be finding his shooting rhythm and confidence again after struggling early, the overall persistent lack of consistency and game-to-game reliability remains deeply concerning for the Mavericks organization that signed him this past summer with high expectations of veteran leadership and elite three-point shooting that would complement their young core. The panel kept emphasizing repeatedly that for a player of Klay Thompson's elite reputation and Hall of Fame pedigree as a 5-time All-Star, 4-time NBA champion, and member of one of the greatest dynasties in basketball history, these extended struggles are particularly alarming and concerning because they suggest this might not just be a temporary slump or adjustment period, but rather a genuine and potentially permanent decline in his physical abilities and basketball skills as he ages into his mid-30s. There's also the extremely significant financial consideration that factors heavily into Dallas's strategic thinking and decision-making process. With an annual salary of approximately $16.7 million guaranteed money and performance output, that's currently well below what you'd reasonably expect and demand from a veteran player earning that substantial kind of money in today's salary cap environment, the Mavericks front office, led by their new general manager, is seriously and carefully evaluating whether Klay Thompson is genuinely worth the continued financial investment and roster spot, especially when considering the organization's potential future timeline that might be strategically built around developing and showcasing young, talented rookie Cooper Flagg, who they selected with the coveted first overall pick in the most recent draft. The SportsCenter crew discussed extensively how that $16.7 million in salary could potentially be better and more efficiently utilized elsewhere in various ways, either to acquire younger talented players who fit better with the franchise timeline, or to add additional valuable depth pieces and role players that address specific roster needs and fit better with their long-term competitive timeline and strategic vision. That's not an insignificant amount of money sitting on the bench producing inconsistent results. And in today's new restrictive CBA environment, with the second-apron luxury tax penalties, every dollar matters tremendously for roster flexibility. Another absolutely major factor creating substantial uncertainty and instability is the significant changes and upheaval happening in Dallas's front office leadership structure and organizational hierarchy. The shocking dismissal and firing of general manager Nico Harrison, which occurred somewhat surprisingly shortly after the controversial blockbuster trade that brought superstar big man Anthony Davis to Dallas in a franchise-altering move, has generated widespread expectation and speculation throughout league circles and among rival executives that the new incoming leadership regime and front office personnel might want to completely reformulate and comprehensively reshape the entire roster from top to bottom to put their own distinctive stamp and vision on the organization rather than simply maintaining continuity. This kind of significant front office transition and leadership change often historically leads to veteran players being made available and shopped around the league as the new regime naturally looks to build their own customized team with their preferred personnel rather than continuing indefinitely with the previous administration's vision, philosophy, and roster construction decisions that they inherited but didn't necessarily agree with or believe in fully. But here's what makes this entire situation particularly intriguing and potentially perfect for the New York Knicks organization and their championship timeline. Despite Klay Thompson's irregular and frustratingly inconsistent phase this season, with significant ups and downs, there still remains genuine, substantial interest from other franchises around the league in acquiring his services and adding him to their rosters, primarily from competitive teams that are actively seeking an experienced shooter with championship pedigree and extensive playoff experience who knows what it takes to win at the highest level, even though his overall market value and trade value has definitely declined significantly from what it would have been just a few years ago when he was still an elite two-way player at his absolute peak. For the New York Knicks specifically, and their current roster construction, acquiring Klay Thompson through trade could provide exactly what this team desperately needs to complement their existing talented core and take that final step toward championship contention. The SportsCenter panel emphasized passionately that Klay Thompson still genuinely possesses elite shooting ability and range. When he's locked in and feeling confident, he brings invaluable championship experience and clutch performance pedigree that's absolutely invaluable in high-pressure playoff situations, and his veteran presence and leadership could help stabilize and guide a Knicks locker room that's still relatively young and learning how to win consistently. So that was the comprehensive Sports Center breakdown of the explosive Klay Thompson trade speculation and what his potential arrival could mean for the Knicks. All right, listen up, everybody. I need to get something off my chest right now because I'm absolutely furious after what I just witnessed on Sports Center. I was literally pacing around my living room last night, watching this game unfold, and then I woke up this morning, turned on ESPN to catch the highlights and analysis, and the entire Sports Center panel was equally as heated as I am about what transpired in Miami. The crew was going absolutely ballistic in the studio, and honestly, I don't blame them one bit, because what we all witnessed last night was nothing short of highway robbery by the officials. The New York Knicks were legitimately robbed by the NBA in their heartbreaking 115-113 loss to the Miami Heat. And I'm not exaggerating when I say this might have been one of the worst non-calls I've seen in a crucial game-deciding moment all season long. Hey, what's up, everyone? Before we jump into this massive Knicks news, I just want to ask you for a quick favor that would mean the world to me. If you could just take 1 second right now and hit that like button, it would be incredibly important to me and helps this channel grow so much. I know it seems like a small thing, but those likes genuinely make a huge difference in getting this content out to more Knicks fans who need to stay updated on everything happening with this team. So seriously, just tap that like button real quick. It literally takes 1 second, and it helps me out more than you know. Now, before we dive into the absolutely egregious missed call that cost New York this game, the Sports Center analysts made it crystal clear that they want to be fair and balanced in their assessment of what happened. Listen, the Knicks absolutely should have played better throughout this entire contest. That's indisputable, and nobody on the panel is denying that reality. They should have been significantly more consistent with their effort and execution, especially with their three-point defensive rotations and closeouts, which ultimately allowed the Heat to get clean looks and knock down shots at a ridiculous clip. The analysts kept emphasizing you should never leave the outcome of a basketball game in the referee's hands if you can avoid it, because you want to control your own destiny and not rely on officials making the correct call in crunch time. All of that is absolutely true, and the Knicks bear responsibility for allowing the game to get that close in the first place. But having said all of that, and acknowledging New York's shortcomings, by the way, real quick, if you're a Knicks fan, check out this insane Knicks cap popping up on the screen right now. It just went on sale until the end of this week, so this is the perfect time to grab yours. And right below, you'll also find other official Knicks products that are absolutely insane. Just click the card that just appeared. Now, let's get back to the video. The Sports Center crew was unanimous in their assessment. The Knicks were absolutely robbed in the final moments of this game, and there's simply no other way to characterize what happened. Did you see that call or lack thereof in the closing seconds? The panel kept replaying it over and over from multiple angles, and each time, it looked even worse. Forget about the goaltending call for a second, because that's actually the least egregious part of the entire sequence. Where in the world was the foul call? The NBA legitimately and directly cost the Knicks this game through officiating incompetence or negligence, and the crew is going to break down all of the latest reports and reactions comprehensively today, because this story is dominating basketball conversation everywhere. Before we get into the controversial ending, the Sports Center panel wanted to provide context by examining the quarter-by-quarter breakdown of this game, because it tells an interesting story about how this contest unfolded. In the opening first quarter, the Knicks scored 20 points compared to the Heat's 25 points, so New York found themselves in an early 5-point hole right out of the gate. But for the rest of the way through the remainder of the game, spanning the second quarter, third quarter, and fourth quarter, the New York Knicks scored exactly 31 points in each and every period, which shows remarkable offensive consistency once they settled into the game. In 2 of those 3 quarters, New York actually scored slightly more than the Miami Heat did, demonstrating they had control of the game flow for significant stretches. The analysts emphasized that just like the viewers watching at home, they genuinely wish New York's offense was significantly better and more efficient last night, across the board. They wish all of those open three-point shot opportunities that the Knicks generated through good ball movement and offensive execution, especially in that crucial second half when the game was on the line, had gone down through the net. But those shots didn't fall with any consistency, and ultimately, the Knicks lost this game by the narrowest of margins. But the panel kept stressing that when a game is genuinely that close and competitive, and you can see it clearly demonstrated by the quarter-to-quarter breakdown showing how evenly matched these teams were. As a professional referee, it is absolutely your job and responsibility to make the correct call in those crucial moments. You need to do your absolute best to make the right decision when it matters most. And the Knicks absolutely did not have that grace or benefit from the officiating crew last night. They were completely and utterly robbed by a missed call. The SportsCenter crew then showed the exact play in question that has everyone in basketball talking. And before they rolled the footage, one of the analysts said, "We need everyone watching to pay extremely close attention to what happens in this sequence, because it's genuinely unbelievable that this wasn't called a foul." So let's break down exactly what happened on this play step by step, because it's important to understand the full context. Deuce McBride initially misses his shot attempt, and the ball comes off the rim with bodies crashing toward the basket fighting for the rebound. Karl Anthony Towns battles through contact and secures the offensive rebound in heavy traffic with multiple Heat defenders surrounding him. You can see Towns grab the rebound clearly right there as bodies are converging. Now, watch carefully, because this is where it gets absolutely ridiculous. Towns has secured the rebound, and he's trying to gather himself and regain his balance. He does gather successfully, and then he immediately goes back up strong toward the basket, attempting a putback shot. Now look at this specific moment frozen on screen, and tell me what you see happening to Karl Anthony Towns as he's elevating. Andrew Wiggins has his entire arm and forearm completely pressed against Karl Anthony Towns' body, making substantial contact. Bam Adebayo has his arm draped directly on Karl Anthony Towns' shoulder as he's elevating for this shot attempt. Where exactly is the foul call? How is that not a foul? That's absolutely a foul by any reasonable basketball standard. Forget about the goaltending controversy for a moment, because that's actually secondary to what happened here. That's not a legal defensive play whatsoever. Wiggins' arm is completely wrapped around and pressed against Karl Anthony Towns' torso. Adebayo's arm is literally on Towns' shooting shoulder, affecting his ability to elevate cleanly. Nobody in their right mind who understands basketball rules could watch this play and not call that a foul. The panel then showed an even more damning angle where you can see Karl Anthony Towns actively shooting the basketball in an upward motion toward the glass. The ball is clearly up, and he is in the process of shooting, trying to bank this putback off the glass and have it go through the net. But as you can clearly observe, Andrew Wiggins has his hands all over Karl Anthony Towns' body. At this particular point in the shooting motion, it genuinely looks like Wiggins is pushing Towns in the abdomen area, while Towns is trying to elevate. Then you have Adebayo right over the top of him, attempting to get the block, and look carefully at where his hand is positioned, right next to Karl Anthony Towns' shooting hand, as Towns is trying to get that ball up cleanly toward the rim. Both of these defensive actions happening simultaneously in this exact moment constitute a clear foul that should have been called. It absolutely should have been whistled as a foul, and Karl Anthony Towns should have been standing at the free throw line, shooting 2 free throws, with an opportunity to tie or potentially take the lead. That's what should have happened in this situation based on the rulebook. But that is absolutely not what actually transpired. Instead, Kel'el Ware comes flying in and blocks the shot, and initially, the referees correctly call it goaltending, which would have given the Knicks those 2 points. But because they called it goaltending initially, now by rule, they can only review that specific goaltending call during the replay review. They cannot go back and review the foul that clearly occurred before the goaltending because fouls aren't reviewable in that situation. After they review the goaltending call, they determine that Ware's block was clean and legal. They take away those 2 points from New York. They have the team's jump ball again for possession. They do not allow Karl Anthony Towns to go to the free throw line. And after that sequence, the rest of the game is essentially over. Now, maybe Deuce McBride should have taken a better, higher percentage shot in the final possession. Maybe Karl Anthony Towns should have been able to convert one of those put-back attempts in the final chaotic moments. Things didn't go the Knicks' way execution-wise, and they lost this game. But the Sports Center panel wants everyone to be absolutely clear. Do not get it twisted about what we're looking at here on the screen. What happened was unquestionably a foul on Karl Anthony Towns that was not called, ultimately robbing New York of this game. So that was the comprehensive Sports Center breakdown of how the Knicks were robbed, plus the concerning Karl Anthony Towns inconsistency issues that need addressing immediately.